Okay, so let's see if we can play a little bit with the font right here. Right, so we have some choices here. Right, so let's just try something. Definitely something like career or something. Career would work, and maybe we can make slightly larger font, maybe something like that. All right, we'll make adjustments if we have to. Let's try this. Run it again. Okay, so this time it's more or less, reasonable, I guess, right? So it's not exactly precisely right, or in terms of the business model, but it demonstrates the idea that there are actually objects which do get updated, and they do include the floor, and if I keep pressing this button, things begin to happen. Okay. So let's deal with initial display, right? Because when I start the application, this whole thing appears to be blank like this. So that's not really a nice thing. Okay, so let's do that. And for that, apparently, what I need to do is that although we have this elaborate animate call inside the controller, which obviously accesses things on both sides, the business object side as well as the window display side of things, right? What I need here is to be able to display, essentially generate this display grid. So I think what I can do is I can simply take this portion, I think, which would be the display portion, right? So in fact, I can have a method. I can create a method named display grid. Why not, right? And I am already using the display grid as local variable, but I'll try this anyway, right? So we can say void a display. We'll just say display elevators. How about that? Display elevators. Right? Display elevators takes no parameters, just basically takes the current state of all of the elevators, and it is pretty much this lower portion of, right now I'll get rid of these older comments right there, right? So this entire portion, hopefully, I just can cut and paste, right? Cut and paste, and hopefully this will be what we need, right? Whereas the animate updates two of these elevators, moves them, and then right now we just simply make this call to update the view. All right, good enough. So and now we need to make sure that we make this happen initially. My thinking is that if I go to my frame view, switch back to the source code of this, and if I if I say controller set main window and then main window set visible, perhaps what I need to do is to say controller dot display elevators, right? Just make sure that it will do the initial update. So hopefully this will work, right? So before we make window visible, we actually will do the initial display. Let's change that, let's save that and then run it, and here it is, right? So this is the initial situation. The first elevator and the first shaft is placed at the top, and then the second is placed at the bottom, because that's what we chose in that use case thing. Okay, so that's kind of sort of like demonstrates that yes, we can display some of these animations. And we can even, like, later on we can say, you know, this is, we can add some annotations here. We can say, you know, garage, right, level, and we can say lobby, right, something like this. We can make some adjustments, and then we can say floor 1, and so forth, right? So we can, or floor 2, actually, after lobby, most likely it'll be a floor 2, right? So we can basically do some changes in this display, that we can actually display more information, and all we need to do is make sure that our grid is updated properly, everything is lined up. I'm just trying to do this for the sake of demonstration, but it wouldn't be bad to add these types of labels. But I think that these types of labels we can do after we actually add a collection of floors, so that when we populate the collection of floors with some sort of like a floor class instances, each floor will have its own label, its own text name, which can be then displayed, you know, externally to the user, right? But right now we don't have anything like this. But in the future, I think this would be desirable, to update the display to do more useful, you know, show more useful information over there. All right, so that's what we have so far. Now is the time for us to do the actual animation. And by that I mean is that we can create a worker thread which will run in the background of this application, and at some periodic times, like, you know, once per second or something like that, send messages and update the view, right? And we can essentially have some buttons to start and stop and do things like that. Right, so let's work on that piece just to kind of finalize this series of demos today. Okay, so what we can do is there is on our home page, I don't think it's anywhere here, it's rather posted when you go to the schedule, and when you scroll down, there's this demo with like a graphical display animation. I'll just click on this, and it has, let me see, I'll just jump to CIS 257 samples, and let me find this here. Swing demo graphics, there should be an animation part over there. Yeah, I can just basically steal the code from any of this thread. All I need to do is basically provide the run method. Okay, so implements Runnable. Okay, let me just code this from scratch in our project, something similar to what I have in that sample. Okay, so going back to the project, and now I will add another class, still using the same package for the sake of simplicity, not worrying about packages right now. Right click and just say new class. Okay, and I will simply name it animation thread, right? Or if I have different kinds of threads, then I will name it thread animation, because it's simpler. If I create more threads, more classes representing the thread in this project, then their naming will be consistent, like thread animation, thread display, thread simulation. They all will be alphabetically listed next to each other on this list in the demo package. So thread animation, finish. Okay, and so we will make it look like this. Implements, Runnable. Runnable. And Runnable is basically the interface which has this method override method, which is the annotation here, right? And I think we already have it, have an example of this run method. It's basically public void run. That's what it is. Public void run. And so when the thread runs, okay, it will do things. Okay, and all we need to do is provide this method, and that's pretty much all that has to happen here. Let's make sure that all our syntax is so far this essentially this stubbed out version of animation thread is working properly. Let's just or syntactically is correct. So let's just say clean and build, and it seems to be doing fine, right? So if I say display my output, everything built successfully. Okay. All right, so now I need to start thinking with this thread of execution. So obviously this class represents a thread of execution. And the thread of execution, let me take a peek at how we can get it started.